behind it all, Bernard, there is this mysterious thing which we must touch upon. And we can't say much more than what I'm going to say. There's no doubt about it that it's not merely that there are a crowd of men and women who are, strictly speaking, Luciferian. That is, they believe that this universe is dominated by an intelligence which is intracosmic, which is worldly, which is not God. It's Satan, really. And that if they carefully follow the dictates of this spirit of intelligence, they will create a safe and happy world for some people, for themselves. But there's much more than that. We have sufficient evidence to know that within the Roman Catholic institutional organization, Satan has been enthroned. He has been given a place by his adepts and surrogates amongst the clergy and amongst the people. And one of John Paul II's difficulties today is that he is frustrated because within the fold, within the sanctuary, as Paul VI said, there's now a positive influence by Satan who has servants among us. Servants among the priests, service amongst the nuns, service amongst the bishops, servants among the cardinals. He is being served. And therefore he can frustrate the will of the Holy Father and the will of Jesus through the Holy Father. We know this. The historical circumstances of the enthronement of Satan in the Church of Rome is something else. But this is a fact we have to deal with. We can't get rid of it until Our Lady comes with great power. Because once you do something like that, once that happens, God doesn't act immediately. He's a macro manager. He manages things in the long run. And if men turn their back on him, he lets them turn their back on him. He doesn't force them back. And there is this now power within the church, satanic power. It's Satanist. And it is influencing our actions and decisions as bishops and as priests and as cardinals and as administrators of the church. Until Our Lady comes and cleans that out, sorry pal, we have to carry it and fight it. That's why Satan has such power today. That's why there's such corruption. That's why grace can't work. Remember, the early missionaries who went to China and Africa, they found that when they went into a village or a group of pagans, their first difficulty was physical. They ran into physical difficulties because Satan ruled there. He didn't want them there. And there are stories, true stories about trying to change the place names in streets from the name of a god to the name of one of the saints. And the ladder would be taken away from the man. He'd fall down and break his neck. And water was polluted. And there were physical difficulties because Satan does acquire physical power once you admit him to your household. And he has great power. Remember that the existence of Satanism in this country is an established fact, that we have at least 8,000 covens, Satanist covens, which include priests and nuns as well as ordinary.
Do these people exist at high levels of government?
Oh yes, they do. They do. Without mentioning any names, they do. Right through the government, in the church and in the state, and in the states. So that there is a presence of Satan today, willed and accepted. You know what appalls us as exorcists in this part of the country? Up to about the year 1975, people committed errors and finally became possessed. A small amount of them invited possession. Today, we find over 50% originally invited possession. People are now saying, possess me, give me power, give me strength, give me pleasure. There's this new reign of Satan. And he gets very angry when he's disturbed because his best PR job is to prove that he doesn't exist. He doesn't exist. Whereas he reigns behind every bit of wainscoting and in every bedroom and boardroom where people worship him and pay attention to him. He has signal victories, like for instance the fact that the North American Boy Love Association, the NAMBLA, is a recognized authority today. Is recognized. It's a public organization. And whereas the American armed forces now must have Wicca chaplains, witches for chaplains for witches. And they have a newspaper published by the expense of the American taxpayer. The thing is, there is Satanism, and it's rampant and respectable. Because the argument is, you're a Roman Catholic, you want respect, you want your chaplain, you want your newspaper, you want your bank balance. I am a Satanist. I claim to worship Satan. I have a right to have my bank balance, to have recognition, to have my place in the public square.
And a right to have those holidays off that are part of my religion's
and
feast days.
We're admitting that. So that's where we have gone so far. The point to be noticed by Christians and Catholics above all is that Satan has been enthroned. And poor Paul VI, to the end of his life, regretfully had to say, the smoke of Satan has entered the church, has entered the sanctuary, and is around the throne. He knew. He knew.
Was this foreseen by Pope Leo XIII?
Yes, it was. It was. And we know it all. When you examine all the evidence back from the last century to today, it all stacks up to the following: that in the latter years, in the last decades, and the last decade above all, of this century, the second millennium, Satan has a one last wild fling because Our Lady is coming. And he knows that's the end. That's the end of his reign. So his 1,000 years of freedom to destroy the church will be over by the end of this millennium. And this pope, this poor man, innocent in all he was chosen as pope precisely at this moment. That's his fate, his terrible fate. He was chosen to be the pope. And after he dies, or after he's killed, or after he resigns, or whatever, then we have the morning of the magician. We don't know what's going to happen. We do know Our Lady will come and save us.